Combining the best of daily fantasy and survivor pools, Stat Hero is the next chapter in fantasy sports. No more competing with the sharks or experts ever, because your only competition is Stat Hero itself. The face of DFS has changed. Finally, a game designed for the rest of us.
Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. 11 weeks are in the books of the fantasy football season, heading into week 12 here. And before we get into this week's waiver wire recommendations, I think this is a great time to really solidify your roster. If you're watching this video, you're either already clinched to be in the playoffs or you're certainly in the hunt. So you have to have that in the back of your mind. Is your roster built for the playoffs? Do you have enough upside on your bench? Do you have depth to sustain any injuries at any position? So keep that in mind as you're going forward here. If you have anybody who you don't think is going to start for you, then certainly it's time for that guy to go and replace him with a high upside backup. And certainly we don't want to be carrying two defenses or two kickers at this time of year. Those are valuable bench spots that you could be using for other positions. So let's dive into this week. Of course, we'll give you 4 recommendations this week, and we'll start with the quarterback position. And hey, if you're looking for a one-week streamer, now this is not a league-winning play by any means, but a one-week streamer, you got one in Jeff Driscoll. The injury to Matthew Stafford is certainly unfortunate, but it has opened up an opportunity here to stream. Don't expect to see Stafford anytime soon, so we should be seeing a lot of Driscoll here. And in fact, last week, we saw this guy put up the 5th most fantasy points among quarterbacks. And of course, he's not a traditional pocket passer, but Driscoll adds with his legs, so he gives you a lot of upside in that area. And hey, he plays the Washington Redskins this week. So Driscoll, with his weapons there in Detroit, is very much in play. If you don't have Patrick Mahomes or Kirk Cousins or Kyler Murray this week, then you could certainly do worse than streaming Jeff Driscoll. All right, moving over to running back. The Colts running back situation is a complete mess. Now, Marlon Mack won't play this week, may not play next week, and we don't know exactly when he's going to come back with that broken hand. Jordan Wilkins is also banged up there. We saw Jonathan Williams, remember him, come out of nowhere and put up a 100-yard game last week in relief of Marlon Mack. But there's a lot of uncertainty because if Wilkins comes back, who gets the ball? So I tell you what, the one place where we actually do know what's going to happen in the Colts backfield is with Nyheim Hines. So let's add him this week. Hines is not going to replace Marlon Mack in that offense. We know that. But we do know also that he does get passes out of the backfield. He adds in PPR for that. And additionally, hey, he got a goal line carry last week and scored on it. So a little bit of upside there with Nyheim Hines. He isn't a slam dunk of a play, but if you're desperate at running back, you need a little bit of help, we are picking up Hines this week. Let's move over to wide receiver. And I tell you what, San Francisco found themselves something in rookie wide receiver Deebo Samuel. He has really turned it on over the last 2 weeks with Emmanuel Sanders banged up. Samuel has seized the opportunity. Up over 100 yards in each of those contests. In fact, over the last 2 weeks, second among receivers in receiving yards. Only Michael Thomas has more. That's premium right there. Now, of course, it's a small sample size, but what you like here is his skill set fits what they want to do in that offense. Jimmy G obviously has a connection with him, so I expect Samuel to keep rolling here, and this is the time of year, like I said, we want to stack up on these high upside guys, load up our bench with these guys, and Samuel certainly has upside in that surging San Francisco offense. All right, let's round it out with a tight end for you. And early on, a few weeks ago, I was resistant to the idea of Ryan Griffin. And it wasn't a knock on Ryan Griffin. It was really just simply because I thought there was a really good chance Chris Herndon could come back and usurp the spot, and then Ryan Griffin really wouldn't have been giving us much of anything. Well, that is out. Chris Herndon is on injured reserve, and Ryan Griffin is rolling. Since week 7, he is 5th among tight ends in fantasy points per game. Last week put up a big line with over 100 receiving yards. That's rare for a tight end, as we know. Griffin did it, though, and he's continuing to roll here, has a nice connection with Sam Darnold. I would not say Griffin's an elite guy or an every week starter or anything like that, but at a position that really lacks depth, Griffin, he's a guy we could use most weeks here going forward. He's a fringe tight end 1, absolutely needs to be picked up at that position. If you need some help this week, if you have one of those guys like Kelsey on bye, you might need some help. Ryan Griffin could very much give you that help. Now I realize, hey, these guys could all be owned in your league, and that's fine because we have you covered. Every week on Tuesday, we release my waiver wire recommendations, and I don't just give you 4 or 5 or 6. This week, I gave you 49 of them, including 5 defenses to stream, going from the shallowest leagues to the deepest leagues. All recommendations in there, so no matter what your league size or format, we have you covered there. You can get that column with all those recommendations, plus rankings, projections, all kinds of football goodness. All of that is over at PFF.com.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.